welcome to The Financial Operator. We have Mitch Smedley here today. He is a friend of mine in Kansas City, so go Chiefs, first of all. Yep. And secondly, you are in some transition, but you are a plumber that started a business. So tell me your story, how you got to where you're at. Give us all the details.
Yeah, so I started a plumbing company in 2020. And at that time,
great time to start a business, by the way.
Oh yeah. And like we made commitments. We had a start date. Like we got a couple of months to pull all this together and we're going to do it. And then March of 2020 happened and the kids came home on spring break and never went back to school and the whole world shut down. And my wife's like, "Are you sure we still want to do this?" I'm like, "We said we're sticking to it. We're doing it." Like,
yeah. So you scaled, fairly rapidly. That's a lot of people will just stay as a single person operation for quite a while, but you went ahead and hired really fairly quickly out the gate.
Yeah, I did not want to own a job. Like I had been employed in the plumbing industry for 19 years. Like I knew what having a job as a plumber was like. I wanted to own a business, something that could produce profit without me, something that didn't need my day-to-day involvement every day just to make things happen. To me, like everyone gets freedom different ways. To me, that was true freedom without immediately starting under the pretense that we're going to grow into a full-fledged business. There was no perk to do that. To me, all I saw was, okay, yeah, if I go start my own thing and I'm the only guy, it's just a whole lot more risk for even if it was twice the money, it's still not worth all of the financial risk and all of the headaches and all of that stuff. So,
okay. So by 2022, basically you had three plumbers, you and two others.
Yeah. By August of 21, we had, we were doing YouTube stuff and everything else. And we had a couple of girls in the office and I had a virtual professional. So, we had so that was all like trying to grow the top line number. Top line revenue. We got the top line to a fairly decent level. And so then we started focusing on improving bottom line efficiencies. And that was, really examining all of our costs and really getting our COGS to where they are fairly consistent percentage wise every month. And then once we had that consistent, then we were able to now forecast and predict like, okay, we need X amount of revenue. And then once we apply the COGS to it, that's going to leave us this much gross profit or overheads X. Like once we streamlined all of that, it gave us a really good, predictable business model to where we like we were talking just before we turned the camera on that, we knew pretty much down to the dollar exactly how much top line revenue we needed every month just to break even. And so that kind of a clear view was huge because when you hit that dollar number with 7 business days left in the month, it's like, all right, now you're in and it's like, let's, we're making hay this month. Let's keep going.
Yeah. So. Well, you're definitely speaking my language with your terms here, but so I got to ask you a question because this is one thing that I see, especially in the home serve, like those businesses that take a lot of capital to one, get started, but two, to keep going. So how did you have loans? If this is something that you're willing to answer, like, was it something like, how did you finance the starting of the business?
So this was part of that prep work when we decided January, February to open in August. It's kind of crazy. Like, I had a pretty cool custom car that I sold. It wasn't worth a ton of money. It was just very unique. So I sold it for $6,000. I used that $6,000 to finish my basement. And then we were going to refinance the house and do a home equity line of credit at the same time. And so house values were skyrocketing. We've finished the basement, refinanced the house. We did a home equity line. The reason we refinanced the house was because I didn't know if the plumbing company was going to, take off and do great, or if it was going to be a struggle for a while or what. And so I wanted to reset our mortgage back out to a 30-year note, getting the payment as small as possible, just to lower my personal overhead each month. I was driving a $500 Ford Ranger at the time. Actually, I think it was $800. It didn't have AC, didn't have it was roller windows. Like it was a junker, but I was doing everything I could to get our monthly overhead, as low as possible. So we refinanced the house, reset the mortgage out to 30 years, dropped the mortgage payment as low as possible. And then our goal was if the business picks up and takes off like it's supposed to, we'll just keep paying the same mortgage payment we used to pay and nothing really changes. But that safety net gave us the confidence to say okay, if we do have a bad month, our minimum that we have to pay on the mortgage is much smaller. And so then I took that home equity line of credit and I started the business with $30,000 of that home equity line of credit. Okay. And so $30,000 and I financed my first truck. And then literally the day I brought the truck home, the very next day I put in my 2 weeks. I'm sure the bank would have loved to know that was going to happen. But so I financed my first truck. I had $600 a month payments on that. And that was back before vehicles skyrocketed. So I bought a Ford Transit with it was technically used. It had 1,800 miles on it. I bought it for $31,000. And then so we were rolling. From that.
Sounds like I was joking about 2020 being a good time, but it might have actually worked out in your favor. It sounds like for a lot of these things, you were able to refinance at low rates.
We got into one of those
probably of the high housing market that was coming through.
Yeah. But the truck would actually turn out to be kind of a mistake. So we financed the truck. We had almost no money. I think we started with $2,000 in the business bank account. And when you're that small and you're that new, you can really manage the company through the bank account. It's not the best way to do it, as you would agree, but you really.
It's only you, right? It's is there money in the account or no?
Yeah. So I often refer to the business growth as shifting gears in a vehicle, and that was granny gear. And so everything is super easy in granny gear. You're not going to go fast and you're not going to go far, but everything's a little easier in the granny gear phase. And so we by February of 21, so we've only been in business 6 months. There was at the end of January of 21, there was a big ice storm or freeze that came through Kansas City. And it was actually all through the central Midwest. It froze all the way down to Texas and everything that year. But that made us so incredibly busy. I just worked morning to night, 7 days a week, and I was just stacking cash in the bank. And so I was actually, by the end of that February, I was able to buy van number 2 with cash. I needed to buy it with cash because I didn't have credit at that point. Your first year in your LLC, the banks look at you like you, right? So it's okay, well, I can't finance a truck number 2. I'm going to have to pay cash for it. Well, as luck would have it, we had another freeze later in February and another round of intensive scheduling and service calls and everything else. We were so busy, we carved our service area down to 10 square miles. And we are not in a densely populated area. Kansas City, it's
spread out.
Yeah. But it's really spread out. And so we had so many calls, we were able to carve it down that far. So March of 21, I bought van number 3 with cash, and I still didn't have plumber number 2 hired. My neighborhood at me
because vans, not stacking cash.
Yeah, and by that time, COVID had taken its hold on van pricing, and so as I'm finding these vans for fairly cheap, it's I got to buy it when it's available. That's worth more than the money in the bank, and so I had 2 vans sitting at I had a van in my garage. Thankfully, my garage is big enough to park one of the vans in. And then I had 2 more in the driveway, and my HOA's breathing down my neck. What's up with this? Are you used car lot or what? So I actually gave one of them to a friend. She has a mobile laundry business, kind of like Uber, but for your laundry. And so I gave one to her to drive, and she's like, "What do I owe you for it?" And I'm like, "Nothing. You're helping me out by getting this out of my driveway. Just enjoy it, and I'll take it back when I need it." So she drove it for 2 months until I needed to build it out. But Yeah, there for a while, we were a 3-truck shop with 1 employee. It was kind of wild. But to take a short step back, whenever I opened the business with 30 grand in the bank account, I had a goal to pay that 30 grand off in 6 months. And it was more of like a target. Like we should be able to pay that 30 grand off in 6 months. I had a goal to pay it off in 3 months. The target was 6, the goal was 3, and we met our goal. The 3rd month into business, we paid off our startup loan that was, from myself, essentially. So I was able to take that $30,000 in the bank and move it back out of the business bank account and then pay off my home equity line of credit with it all within 3 months. And it worked perfectly. And home equity line of credit too I found it as a great resource for starting the business simply because it's not a fixed loan amount. So if I needed, like, that provided me the safety and security of like, I can get a little bit more aggressive with the finances and run things a little bit narrower, because worst case scenario, if I need to dump 5 or 10 grand into the business to bridge a gap, I can pull it out of the private equity and I can, not private equity. I can pull it out of the HELOC and then into my personal bank account and then move it from my personal into the business as an owner's investment and then take it back out if I need. And we had done that maybe, I don't know, over the last 5 years, we probably did that 2 or 3 times just as cash flow gets a little wrecked every now and then as you start growing and all of that stuff. So.
Yeah, I did the same thing when I bought MKB. I did a home equity HELOC to pull some equity out of the house, make the down payment, planning on paying myself back. And yeah, same thing. I agree. It's a great, if you have the ability to use that, it's a great way to get some cash out of business. Yeah,
just never, I was told early on, never go from HELOC directly to the business.
Yeah.
You want to go.
Yeah, anytime. Make sure it's a loan from you so that there's nothing attaching it to your house.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want the business to be receiving funds from your asset that is your home. So
not directly. Anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, so those vans, they ended up being, that was my first major mistake in business. They love buying as many tools as they can. And so when I hired these other 2 plumbers, and like, I realized I'm in the minority by being so thrifty with my tools. Every other plumber out there has got shelves of tools, and they're great. Like, they do save time and everything else. I was just too frugal to ever invest in that way. So these other plumbers come on board and the vans were too small, and we stocked a water heater on our vans, and they were removing the water heater off the vans so that they could build shelves in the water heater pocket for tools. And so that made us less capable out in the field. It made us less efficient, because if we went to a house that needed a new water heater, now we're having to drive and go get one. And anytime you leave a house after somebody's agreed to a repair, the risk of them canceling or getting buyer's remorse or cold feet goes up and all of that stuff. And so I learned real quickly, like, we got to get bigger vans. Well, now COVID pricing had taken full effect of all of the vehicles. And so thankfully, it also took effect on the trade-in value of our vehicles. I made about $10,000 on each of our vans when I traded them in. I didn't even have to sell them outright to make 10 grand on them, which sucks because then I had to pay capital gains tax on the van. On the trade.
Oh my gosh.
Literally doubled in price. And then I had to pay sales tax. I've already paid sales tax on the other vans, and I had them for over a year. And so you don't get your sales tax credit from the state to apply to the next one other than your trade value, right? So I was able to early 20. Well, all of that happened at the same time that we were growing, and I needed 2 more vans. And so one of the vans I ordered directly from Ford was an all-electric Ford Transit. So that one was actually cheap. It cost me 56 grand. But I had to wait 3.5 months to get it. And then the other van, I went back to that dealer and bought another one for 72 grand. So I went from only having a loan on 1 van and 2 vans cash to now I got $250,000 in vehicle debt, like all within like 6 weeks. All of that happened within like 6 weeks. And so that really set an overhead number that we were not accustomed to. Prior to that, we were stacking a lot of money in the bank. But then you go do something like that, for one, the initial financial hit of the down payments and the sales tax and everything else. But then also now I've got 5 van payments out there. And we tried to put as much down on all the vans to get the payment to around 600. We did, but essentially our budget says if your van costs are $600 a month, you're good. Actually, the budget says if the van costs are about $900 a month, you're good. But the other 300 is for repairs and maintenance and, tires and all of that kind of stuff.
Right. So, okay. So you got new vans. So then you had 5 plumbers total for you?
Yeah. Okay. So 2 of them were doubled up in one of the vans. But as we got more efficient with things, we were able to downsize that field staff. And so now we're down to 5 in the field. And rocking and rolling. So,
okay. So when you were deciding how many you kind of wanted to, what was your difference between finding more work, getting a 6th van, doing that versus downsizing to 5?
A lot of that teetering point was the finding of more work. You think about it, plumbing is actually kind of an interesting business to market for and to project for if you're doing like service and repair, because nobody needs a plumber until they need you. That makes a lot of remodel and construction companies, they can look at the timing of their funding for their projects. They can look at the timing of the other contractors, and they can kind of build out a scheduled forecast. My schedule is literally empty 4 days from now. Like right now, I could show you my schedule. There's not a single thing on it 4 days from now. And we have to do it. Tell them.
That's what I was going to say. Like plumbing emergencies are emergencies, right?
Yeah.
Like
they're not going to like hearing that we're 2.5 weeks out.
Yeah, they'll just call the next guy, right?
They'll just call the next. So we're in I don't know where it is. I haven't even looked at the schedule. We're in a cafe right now where they went to open their doors this morning, and there's black sewage over all of the floor, over the whole.
I know I can relate to their problem in many ways, but Mitch helped me out one time after a long Saturday. We had a toilet. This is one of the reasons that I sold Brick House. Honestly, I was like, why do I have public bathrooms? They are terrible. Clogged toilets, clogged sinks, clogged everything, and you just get shut down. Like if you don't have water in a restaurant regularly, you don't have anything. So, and in your house, it's a very similar, right? Like you can't use bathrooms, you can't use sinks. It's like you don't even realize how often you are using that.
Right.
Yes.
Cell phone, anything.
Well, and I gotta say, it's not like you want to reach into a public bathroom or toilet, right? And save whatever's in there. So I don't blame them necessarily, but on the other hand, it's like anything and everything will go down a toilet, cause problems down the road. But okay, so it was more of like you found your sweet spot with 5 plumbers.
Doing a fair amount of marketing through our YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel, like it's hard to market directly through a YouTube channel, but since Google owns YouTube, we were very, very prevalent on Google. And that helps your SEO a ton and everything. And so we very cost effectively, for under 5% of our revenue budget, we were able to market and get up to that level. Now, as we're learning to grow beyond this, it takes a lot more than 5% of your marketing. Or 5% of your budget to market and continue to grow. Yeah. So.
Well, okay. Tell me a little bit about this too, because you have definitely a unique perspective to marketing that a lot of companies aren't using. You're very much like your personal brand, YouTube, like those are things that you're not normally thinking of a plumbing company. Like, but I'm subscribed to your YouTube channel. I watch your videos. It's like, it's different, right? Like, and you're not just showing the boring stuff, but they're like, cool.
We kind of showed everything. And so like even building the YouTube channel was a process in itself. So we started the YouTube channel literally the first video we filmed for the YouTube channel was buying the E-Transit. in purchasing that all electric transit. So we went from no subscribers to a couple of subscribers because like your friends and your mom will always subscribe to your YouTube channel, right? And so we put out a couple of videos on the e-transit, and they did really well. And the main reason why is because we were one of the first people in the nation to take delivery of an e-transit, and nobody knew about these things, and they had a bunch of questions. And it's like, well, heck, let's use YouTube as a platform to grow our following let's use the e-transit as a platform to grow our YouTube following. So we started making a ton of e-transit videos. And it worked well. It got us up over 1,000 subscribers. It actually got us to about 10,000 subscribers. I think we were at about 10,000 subs by the time we decided we're not doing another video on vehicles. Gotcha. And so we decided we're just going to be done. We didn't delete all the other videos. I don't think we've ever deleted a video off YouTube. But we just said, okay, we're not making any more e-transit videos. But throughout that process, our e-transit videos were the most viewed videos on YouTube for the e-transit in America. And e-transits hit the European market a little bit before ours. And so there are some European YouTube channels that had some more content, but their models were totally different and all of that. And so one day I'm at work, my videographer's with me. My wife's answering the phones. She was our CSR at the time. And she calls me and she says, hey, I just took a message that you're going to need to call this person like real fast. And I'm like, okay, who was it? And she says, it's some senior vice president at Ford Motor Company. They've seen your YouTube and they want to talk to you. And I'm like, oh crap, are we in trouble? Like I never, but basically it was a 2-hour conversation with 5 different vice presidents from Ford, and they wanted to sponsor our YouTube channel. They told us in that meeting that we've sold more e-transits in the US than any car dealer out there, just from our videos. Really? And we never ended up striking a deal with Ford, kept the relationship up, but they actually partnered us up or introduced us to a technology company that was trying to come out with like a field service management software. And it would integrate with Ford telematics and your whole fleet watch and everything. And so we started, like I was on their advisory board for product development and all of this stuff to help them make a better software. And then they wanted to sponsor our podcast and our YouTube and all of this stuff. And that whole deal ended up falling through. They waited, like they sent us over a contract worth 6 figures. And they had never once listened to an episode of our podcast. And our podcast is separate from the plumbing company. It's not the plumbing company's podcast. It's a podcast about starting service-based businesses. And as with podcasts, you're going to get very transparent. And sometimes you're going to get political and you're going to have to state your opinions on things and everything else. Well, this is a California-based company, so they are very left-leaning with their view. And so then they come back to me the day after they gave us the contract, and they're like, hey, we have to rescind that. We have to pull that back. And then they even tried splitting the relationship with my co-host and I on the podcast. They were like, you're great, but your co-host, if we can get him off the show, we still have a deal. And I'm like, well, then we don't have a deal. So them a very well thought out response and basically told them, like, if you're going to let political views get in the way of your business, you're carving out like over half of trades workers are on the conservative mindset. So like, if you're going to allow relationships to be hampered by their political views, you're in for a rough ride. And sure enough, they went bankrupt like 4 months later. So
good thing he didn't sign the contract anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so the podcast, what is the name of it? First of all, if anybody wants to go listen.
Yeah, the podcast is called The Void. And there's a lot of podcasts called The Void, actually. But ours is a white square with red letters. And it just says The Void on it. But basically, I started the podcast 1.5 years after we were in business. And the the idea was, okay, we got off the ground pretty easily. And I had a very structured process for how we built the business ahead of time and then things we did after we were in business. I'm like, other people need to know this information. Like, I was in the industry for 19 years, scared to start my own business. And then here I just like proved myself wrong. And so I actually wrote a book for how to start a home service company. And I never did anything with it. It's still sitting inside this computer right now. Because I realized the people that would need to read that book probably aren't book readers in their personal development journey yet. These are, trades workers. And if you're a trades worker, you're probably not a book reader until you're ready to become a business owner. So we turned the book into a podcast. And the first 9 episodes of the podcast are basically going over, it's a 9-hour conversation of everything that was in the book is basically what it is.
Okay. Nice. That's impressive. Yeah. 209 episodes. Okay. All right. Well, so let's jump a little further ahead to currently what you're doing, because you got a couple of cool things going on. Yeah. So I'll let you speak on whatever you want. But
yeah, so we ran the podcast for like a year. Yeah, right at about a year, and we were getting so much engagement and questions and everything else. And people were asking us these very unique questions that you can't really like. Doing a podcast is kind of weird because you can give some generalities and general advice, but it's hard to like dive down and provide somebody a specific solution. Because although a lot of problems are very similar, how you implement the solution is going to be different business to business, right? And so we were getting all of that engagement and activity. And we're doing the podcast for free. I funded all of the, like this, I'm in our studio right now. Like I funded all of this and it's like, okay, I can't give much more out for free. And so we decided to start a company called Tradewinds. And that's like winning in the trades, trading wins. And so that is our small business trades based coaching and mentorship program that we do. And we've been doing that for about 2.5 years now and rolling really well. No, I guess we've been doing it for, about 2.5 years. So
I didn't realize it'd been that long.
It's been, everyone's going to plateau at a slightly different spot there, depending on your market and some other things, but we're going to get you to your first million at least. Some markets we can, with just as much ease, we can get you to 3 million. And then the Tradewinds is not at this point. The goal for Tradewinds is we'll get people to cycle out, and so this coach for you, they're going to have a little bit more financial back end knowledge, some operational stuff, and whatever else. So we've had a couple of people cycle out of Tradewinds, grow their businesses, and go grow them bigger than what Tradewinds is designed to handle, and move on. So it's been really cool to see. So
so that all started kind of from the podcast, then to the Tradewinds, kind of bringing it full circle. Like, do you see a lot of people coming from your podcast? They were listeners, and then they're hopping in there. Yeah.
The podcast is definitely a funnel for Tradewinds for sure. At this point, we don't market Tradewinds anywhere, but that's all going to change starting really today. So yesterday, I actually. We closed on the sale of our plumbing company. We sold our plumbing company. It's that literally just happened yesterday and today. So pretty cool.
Very exciting. Yeah. And that is kind of a thing that, you did it in 5 years, basically.
Yeah, 5 years. So 5 years and 1 month to the day.
Right. But that's like the dream, right, of a lot of business owners, right? They want to grow something to the point where it's at least sellable, whether they want to sell it or not, that it's something that is their retirement fund, is their children's, retirement funds, college funds, whatever it may be. So give me some advice, or the listeners some advice on, like, first of all, when did you decide, like, okay, this is maybe something that I want to do?
Yeah, it was probably, it was right at about a year ago where I signed the exclusive listing agreement with the business broker to where I would work with him exclusively and so on. And I knew it was not going to sell quick, because what do they say? It's for sale, not on sale kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew it wasn't going to sell. I valued our team too much for that. I've never seen a business sell to private equity and keep the same characteristics years down the road. Mm-hmm. So that was not an option. And we weren't really, and I don't want to say like that was mine to say no to. Private equity really likes to buy businesses with $1 million in EBITDA. Mm-hmm. And we were not that big. Mm-hmm. In our industry, you'd have to be at least a $5 million a year revenue company to have $1 million in EBITDA. And that's if you are like, that's industry leading EBITDA at 5 million in revenue. And so, we were not like considering that route. And so it was more somebody local is going to buy it. And, I actually turned down an offer that cost me $300,000. It was an offer that was $300,000 larger than the offer I ended up taking. And the main reason why is because I knew their plans for the business, and I knew the business wouldn't exist within like a year or two after them buying it. Mm-hmm. And so, I didn't want that for our team. I didn't want that for the community that gets so much from the plumbing company and everything else. So it took a year to find the right group of investors that were going to keep it for what it is and just keep growing it. So
did you plan to keep part ownership, or was that no?
Okay. That company doubled its size. The new owners doubled his company's size, and then they sold it to private equity. And so his 30% became twice as valuable. Mm-hmm. Well, then when they sold it to private equity, he was cashed out of some of his ownership, and now he only owned about 10% of the company, still had no voting rights. They since sold it again after doubling its size again, and so his 10% value doubled in amount again. Mm-hmm. And so technically it's not really selling your company 3 times, but he was a part of his company changing hands 3 times, and he made money on all 3 of them. And so that's where I got the idea to retain some ownership. And then once I became highly confident with this ownership group, I was like, yeah, I want to stay on. And so I kept a percentage of it. And in full transparency, like I like them so well. And obviously I'll get to know more in the coming months and years. They've paid about half down for the business, and I'm financing them the other half for the next 5 years. And my plan is to replace the income that I'm going to lose by selling the company. And when I get that income replaced, I want to go back to them and say, hey, this remaining balance, what are the options of converting that into an equity position into the ownership group? Mm-hmm. And so now I retain a percentage of ownership in the plumbing company, but I also now have a percentage of ownership in the company that owns the plumbing company. Mm-hmm. And just diversifying the portfolio even more. Mm-hmm. So I love it. Did not create generational wealth or anything like that. This isn't one of those, diamond in the rough success stories where, I sold for millions and millions and millions of dollars and my family will never have to work again. Ultimately, I sold to free up my bandwidth so I could focus a lot more on Tradewinds, because that's where my passion lies. So I still made out very well. But it's not, I didn't sell it for a retirement worthy amount of money. We'll say that.
Right. Yeah. But you still want to work. So what are your vision? What's your vision for Tradewinds? What are you wanting to do there?
The current vision for Tradewinds is to double its size from where we're at currently, which we have never marketed for Tradewinds. It's all been organic through personal branding and through our podcast. And so we will start marketing for Tradewinds almost ASAP, getting, if people don't know who you are, they can't buy from you. And so I'm going to take everything I've learned from marketing a plumbing company over the years. And I feel like if I can market a plumbing company where you don't know if you need a plumber until you need one, I feel like if I can market that very well, then I can market Tradewinds even better. And we'll get it to double its size. And then my income should be replaced from the plumbing company. I never paid myself a ton from the plumbing company. Only in the last year of ownership did I bump my salary to $100,000 a year. Usually I kept my salary around like 75 grand a year. And so that actually became kind of like a mind trip because I'm watching and I have all the risk and they get to go home at night and I have to worry about, bills and cash flow and making payroll. And when somebody doesn't pay their bill and I'm the one who has to eat that because my guys still get paid and, all of that stuff. So that was a little bit of a mind trip. And we tried fixing that by bumping my salary up to 100 in the last years, but it still was just like, nah, this just isn't where it needs to be. And I'm not
Okay. Well, so then you don't have a long ways to go, right? To replace your income.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, we're hoping. Like the goal is to, within about 6 months, we should be able to double the size of Tradewinds and get it really rolling. And obviously our long-term goal with Tradewinds is to go way beyond that. But in the cool thing with Tradewinds is none of our stuff is ever financially motivated. This will be the first financial motivation I've had with Tradewinds, and that's the pursuit to double the size so I can replace my income. But before that, it's always been do what's right for the trades community and do what's right for our members. And look what happens. The money shows up. And so like when we host events, through doing the podcast and Tradewinds, you kind of develop a little bit of like a celebrity status kind of, and it's a weird feeling for sure. Cause I'm not that way, but when we go to these events, people are wanting to chat with you 24/7, pick your brain, ask you that, they just want to be a fly on the wall for any conversations you're having. And so like I psych my wife out for this and my business partner, because when we do these events, like I'll stay down in the hotel lobby every night until I can't keep my eyes open anymore, chatting with these guys, just trying to give them as much value as I can. Because like they flew all the way from wherever they're at to come to the event. The least I can do is give them every ounce of energy I've got. So.
All right. So since you have so much knowledge about all of the trades and have had a peek behind the curtain for a lot of them, which one do you think is the easiest to get into, and second, the most profitable?
So the easiest to get into would be non-licensed trades.
Okay.
And that's not an easy license to get. It takes at least 5 years of proven experience. There's a very healthy test. It's a 3-hour test you have to take. And hundreds of pages of code book is covered in the test and everything. So non-licensed trades, power washing, being a roofing contractor, not a roofer. Roofers do have some licensing. A roofing contractor is basically a sales organization that sells jobs and then hires roofers to do them. Now, the most lucrative to get into is going to be probably HVAC.
Okay.
If your bathtub breaks and you need a whole new bathtub, everything you need is at Home Depot. If your main line backs up and you need to rent an auger, you can go rent an auger. So like plumbing is accessible to the nation. HVAC is not. HVAC requires an EPA license to work on refrigerant, and that's not an easy license to get, but it's the greatest shield to keep them out of the box stores. You can't go to Home Depot and buy a new furnace or an air conditioner and put it in. They won't sell it to you. You can't go to Home Depot and buy a control board for your furnace that when it fails, or a capacitor or a thermal expansion valve or anything like that. And so that forces every HVAC customer out there to have to find somebody. Now, there are boatloads of cheap under the table HVAC companies out there, but it's still 100% of air conditioners have to have somebody fix them with those licenses. Whereas, I would venture to guess that over half of water heaters getting replaced in the nation are done by non-licensed plumbers. Some of that might be some like back page Craigslist kind of guys that are working out of the back of a truck. Some of that might be homeowners but still, like, the box store will give you a water heater. Like, you have access to do it yourself. HVAC is not that way. Because of that, they get to charge very, very healthy rates. And so in the proof of that is like, follow private equity. Private equity is buying up HVAC companies left and right. HVAC companies are a little bit easier to scale to the $5, $6, $7 million point, to where you have enough EBITDA that private equity is going to look at you. We were unique that we did everything we did in our plumbing company, and we only did plumbing, never anything else. We were fairly unique with that. Most plumbers will partner up with an HVAC company really quick. Every home has to have an HVAC person in it every couple of years, just with maintenance and everything else, because they can't fix it themselves. And so it just opens up the customer portal wide open for plumbers if you partner with HVAC. So, yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, I've taken up a lot of your time today, but is there any last thoughts or last pieces of advice to give to anybody?
The biggest advice I always have for everybody, this is what we lead with in Tradewinds and everything else, is grow your business to the point where you aren't required day to day for profit. You should be able to take a vacation and checks are still getting in the bank. You should be able to take a day off of work and customers are still being served. And if you're a one-man shop, everything stops when you stop. And so if you stop long enough, all that momentum stops and now you're starting from zero again. The other piece of advice I have is to learn how to manage your business from the profit and loss statement, because that's where you're truly into business. And it's not just a little side gig that the state calls a business so that they can tax you differently. That's where you're truly into legitimate business is, man, our material costs went up last month. Why? And being able to justify and understand why. And is it a reasonable justification, or did something go wrong? You know, all of those things. That's where you're really operating a business instead of, you know, it seems like a lot of people go into business for themselves just so they can put all the letters after their names on their social media platforms, you know, CEO or vice president or founder, you know, whatever. And like, I was always the opposite with that. When I got business cards for a plumbing company, it just said my first name. I didn't even want the customers to know my last name was Smedley, because that's what of a big company. So, learning how to run your bank or run how you run your business from the P&L is huge. And then lastly, and as you just poured into some wisdom for our Tradewinds guys, learning how to understand cash flow, because there are many times where your P&L shows profit and you don't have any money in the bank. And so you're like, something must be wrong. Well, not all of your expenses show up on a P&L, and not all of your outbound money shows up on a P&L. So learning to
I love to say your profit and loss is lying to you, because I cannot tell you the number of business owners that I talk to will pull a P&L and they'll be like, there's no way that's right. That's not what's in my bank account, right? And they don't count all of those extra things, but where it's going.
And you're like, what the heck? So, I became, a hawk to our P&L where I was watching it day in and day out. Not every day. You can watch it too often, but I at least watch it twice a week. I pull a report twice a week and see where we're at and see where we're trending to make sure that we're trending in the right areas and make sure that some expenses aren't exceeding their budget. So,
all right. Well, thank you, Mitch. Thanks for being on the Financial Operator. I think you gave some great financial advice. And good luck. Sounds like you're off to some new adventures here. So. Yeah,
it's gonna be a lot of fun. So
I'm sure it will be fun to watch from the outside.
We're gonna have a lot of fun.
All right, thank you.
All right.